work on a build of a LED stopwatch. The reason I'm working on this is my daughter loves to come to me and say, "Hey Dad, time me." And she runs off or swims off and then comes back and asks me what time it is, and I make up some random amount of time. So I thought it'd be fun to build a little project so she can have her own stopwatch and she could time herself. So I've got a couple items here. You recognize this is a battery pack. I've got an LED matrix. This is an 8x32 flexible matrix. You can get this on Amazon for about 20 bucks. Here's a bunch of little single LEDs that are on circuit board. You can kind of pop them off, and here's one here individually. And then we've got this Seeeduino, I have no idea how to pronounce it, XIAO, something like that, XIAO. This is a tiny Arduino, is all it is. It has a USB-C port, and yeah, it just does everything an Arduino does, just in a small little package. And then we have this massively large push button switch, which has its own light inside of it. And we're going to use these components and maybe put it into a shoebox, cardboard box, something like that, and put it together. Here we go. All right, before we start building anything, I just want to draw out what the plan is here. This is definitely not to scale, but it's a rough drawing to kind of give me an idea of how things are going to get wired up. So start over here with the battery. This is our USB battery pack. We're going to have a cable that runs over and powers our Arduino with that USB-C cable. On the Arduino itself, there's a 5-volt output, and that 5 volts is going to power our LED matrix, and it's also going to power this little switch LED that'll light up the switch. Then we're going to also have ground that'll power the LED and the LED matrix and the switch LED. And then over here we've got a series of I/O pins. And it's important to note that the Arduino, this tiny little version, has 3.3 volt I/O pins, so it won't work for 5 volt things. But for this matrix and this LED, it'll be plenty to send data to that device and control it. So over here we've got a series of I/O pins. We'll just set pin 0 to be an input, and it'll read the switch when it gets pressed. Pin 1 will go up here and control the switch LED, so we can control what color the switch is. And then pin 3 will run it up here to the LED matrix and light up the LED matrix with a bunch of numbers and try to keep track of things. So that's an overall layout of how this is going to go. Let's get to work. Now let's look at the switch. This is a big, huge switch here, and kind of take it apart, because what I want to do is I not only want to read when the switch is pressed, but I'd like to change the color up here with an LED inside of make it a little more fun. So let's take this apart and see. So right here, when I take it apart, there's an LED up here that's just a single LED, through-hole LED. We'll place that to the side. It's got some contacts there in the middle. This yellow piece is the actual switch part, and let's see if we can remove it from here. There we go. So this is the switch, and I'll hold it up here so we can kind of focus in on it. You've got NO normally open and NC normally closed, so you can use those two pins appropriately for the switch, and then this is your common, and this is the actual switch that makes it work. So we'll use that. This other side is where that LED was held in place at. And what we'll do is we'll try to remove these little contacts to give us room to put the wires in. So let's see if we can get these out. There we go. They're kind of tight in here. There we go. All right. So now we have a nice housing that we'll place our LED in. This will fit really nicely. What we'll do is kind of glue that in place, and our wires can kind of shoot out the bottom right underneath there. So we'll wire that up first with the LED, and then we'll wire that up to the Arduino module, make sure that light works and the switch works, and then we'll wire it up to the matrix and start putting some actual letters and numbers on that matrix screen. And for the LEDs, I've got this panel of lots of LEDs that I can kind of pop one off and use it individually. And so if you look at these, you'll look at it here, And on the right side, the top and bottom pins are 5 volts. The left side is ground, the top and bottom. And the middle pins are D in and D out. And that's data in, data out. So that allows you to kind of multiplex these LEDs together, string them together, and you can control them in your Arduino code. So now we have the LED lit up. It's very bright and green, and we're going to mount it in that holder so we can put it inside of the switch and kind of light up the switch itself. So let's get the housing for the old LED here, and let's start chopping away this inner piece so we can slide this LED up inside of it here. Okay, there we go. Now let's see if this will fit inside of here. There we go. I'm going to bend that back a little bit. Fit it into place. And there we go. Alright, we got our LED. Got the wires coming out the bottom. Let's see how it fits inside of here. Perfect. It's a little directional, but it's okay. It's good, and we can change the colors and go from there. That's great. Okay, let's see if that fits. Boom. We wire up the LED matrix. We'll go ahead and unplug this guy. We'll grab him. And this LED matrix, if you turn it over, we kind of see the pin out here, 5 volts ground and D in, and so we're going to wire that up accordingly and see how it works. One thing I wanted to mention was this LED matrix has a ton of LEDs on it, and it actually requires a lot of power if you want to light up all red, green, and blue LEDs at one time. And right now the power is running through this USB-C port, which is coming from my hub, which could supply power for most of the LEDs, but just to be safe, what we're going to do is power the LED matrix from the battery pack. And what we're going to do is take a USB cable like this, and then I'm going to chop off the end of it. I've already chopped off the end of it, and I've attached red and black to those 5 volt lines. And what we'll do is we'll plug that in there and put these wires down on these pads, which is the same thing. It's just 5, so we can zoom in, 5 and ground there. We're going to power it that way just to make sure so we don't overload our USB port. got a very bright blue LED display. Now this is just proving out that we can light up all the LEDs, and then we'll work on some code in a little bit after we wire everything up on actually putting a stopwatch on the numerical values across the screen. Alright, so the next part that we want to do is wire up this switch, and we'll wire it up to the normally open, and then when you push it, it'll close the switch. This Arduino module has an internal resistor pull up, so we'll set that on pin 0 so we don't need an extra resistor, and we'll hook up these two pins, normally open and common, and we'll connect the normally open to pin 0 and the common to ground. Let's do that now. Programmed up. That took a little bit of time to work through the code and get it to do the stopwatch kind of feature, but I'll turn off some of these lights here. You can see it a little bit better. And so there's the stopwatch, and if you press the switch, and it's when you release the switch, so you can hold it down and get ready to run, release, and it counts up. And then when you come back, you can hit the button again and stop it. 3 seconds and 94 milliseconds. And if you hold the button down for 2 seconds, it'll reset the clock, and then you're ready to go again. So now let's go ahead and put it together inside this cardboard box, and we'll kind of fabricate that and see what it looks like. So now let's go ahead and clean up this out of the way a little bit here. I've got a nice little shoebox, and we'll cut a hole in the top for this button switch, and then we'll put the LED matrix on the side here. It is upside down. Well, we can fix that. There it is. Now let's go see if she likes it.